A new Reuters special report investigates the Trump administration's attempts to end one of the nation's most powerful military think tanks. Over the last 60 years, the government-commissioned advisory group known as JASON has conducted hundreds of studies for the Pentagon and other various agencies. The team is comprised of dozens of America's greatest scientific minds. The article, Inside a Trump-Era Purge of Military Scientists at a Legendary Think Tank, explores the escalating conflict between the Trump administration and the world of science. Charles Levinson is the author behind that investigative piece. He is joining me now on set. Thank you so much for being here, Charles. This is very interesting to me. It's very convoluted, a lot of facets here. So let's begin with the JASON panel. It's legendary. First, explain what its function is for people that may not know.
Sure. In the late 50s, after the Russians launched Sputnik, the Americans were panicked that they were falling behind in the space science race. And so they started this panel called JASON, named after the mythical Greek explorer. And they basically brought together a bunch of America's top physicists. I mean, the panel by now has over 11 Nobel Prizes between them, to crunch their minds and try to catch America up. And over the years, they've been commissioned to do all kinds of advanced studies commissioned by various agencies, the Pentagon and others.
And a lot of them are classified.
Yeah, most are classified, but a handful are not. Okay. So they've done a lot of work. Most recently, for example, or not most recently, but recently they were asked by the State Department to look into the mysterious illness that befell diplomats in Cuba. Do you remember? They thought it was some mysterious radio wave weapon, and they actually looked at it and said, the sound that you're hearing that you think might be this mysterious attack is actually a cricket, we think.
Oh my goodness.
So they've also done a lot of work with the National Nuclear Security Administration on sort of keeping America's nuclear stockpile secure and functioning and effective.
I think one of the first to mention global warming too, right?
No, I don't think they're, not that they've dealt with it, but
and cyber warfare.
They've done a lot with cyber warfare, sure.
I was reading a whole report on some of the things that they were the first to kind of speak of. How is the JASON program funded, and what does the future look like?
So the JASON program is funded by the agencies that commission them to conduct studies, about $500,000 per study. So if the DoD, Pentagon, wants a study, they pay for every study they commission. Any other agency, from State Department to the NNSA to whoever, will pay for the studies they commission. They do an average of about 12 to 15 studies a year, so it works out to about an $8 million program. About 60 scientists come together every summer, do the studies that they've been asked to do, write the reports, and submit them to the agencies that ask for them.
In what ways are you saying that the Trump administration is now trying to undermine?
Sure. So earlier this year, the contract was due to be renewed, and suddenly it wasn't renewed, and they canceled the bid for the renewal, and it was caught everybody off guard. This has been going on for 60 years with never a glitch, and it wasn't really clear what had happened. The reason given was for cost-saving reasons at the Pentagon, but again, as I said, the Pentagon only pays for studies they use, so it didn't really ring true with a lot of the scientists and the people involved with the program that was the reason. So what it turned out was that the Trump appointee, who's the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, sort of the Chief Technology Officer at the Pentagon, is this guy Michael Griffin, and he's sort of most known for his strong advocacy of space-based weapon systems. He worked on the, quote, Star Wars space-based missile defense in the 80s under Reagan. He's just been put in charge of a new space development agency to gear up sort of all the military hardware that would be involved in space defense. And the JASONs have, over the years, going back to at least the 80s, done reports that have been critical of a lot of this science underpinning this space-based missile defense and other sort of things, and a lot of people believe that was sort of what led him to end the program, or to try to end the program. Now, after he moved to cancel it, the National Nuclear Security Administration came and said, hey, we use these guys a lot. We depend on them to help us, do a lot of the advanced science that we need to keep nuclear weapons safe. Obviously, nuclear weapons are, demand a high level of expertise, and these are the best in the country. We want to keep this program going. We'll take it off you. We will take over the contract, no cost to you. But in order to get this contract going, it's going to take us a little bit of time. So we need you to sign this no cost. It's called a 1-month no cost extension. Just a signature was needed, and then the DoD would be done with it, and the NNSA would have this contract. And Griffin refused to do that, which suggested again to many people that it wasn't really just a cost saving reason. It wasn't just cost savings.
What would be the next step? Is there another way for them to circumvent the system?
Sure. So the NNSA managed to sort of find a workaround to get the contract still, despite the differences, and inked an 8-month temporary extension for this program. So they're good for another 8 months. What happens after that, we don't know. There's been language inserted into the Defense Authorization Act, the defense spending bill in Congress, in the House anyway, that would order the Pentagon to keep the program going. The Senate version doesn't have that language. It's a big if that it'll survive survive final reconciliation.
Yeah, Okay, well, I'm sure there'll be more to come, and you'll be following it.
Yeah.
Charles Levinson, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.